All right, turning it over to you.
All right. Well, everyone, is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. We're super excited to have you all here for our conversation with the CEO. We have a great CEO today, a CTO. We're really excited to have Zeki today. I'll give you a quick bio, and then we're gonna let Zeki talk, and then you're gonna be able to ask lots of interesting questions, and we'll hopefully have some dialogue after his brief presentation. And again, the conversation with the CEO is just to give you some insight into a local leader as to how they're working and weathering through our time of pause, what kind of innovation they're working on. And we really thought, let's talk to someone who's been doing tech work for a long time. So I had the pleasure of meeting Zeki when I was at the Community Foundation several years ago, because of some great work that he's done here in the community. So Zeki Mokhtarzada is a tech innovator. At the height of the dot-com era in 1990, he helped create the world's first web-based operating system, which is pretty impressive because he was pretty young. The next year, he and his brothers founded FreeWebs, which is a platform that offers digital marketing products to small businesses, which we know we have a lot of small businesses here at Leadership Montgomery. He served as the engineer, architect, and CTO, overseeing all the technology from the site, which eventually grew to serve tens of millions of people and visitors each month. FreeWebs, which later became Webs, was acquired by Vistaprint. We're all heard of Vistaprint in 2011. And Zeki served as a lead architect and engineer manager for digital products. He also founded Truebill recently, which is a subscription management tool that helps consumers discover and cancel unordered subscriptions. Probably many of you heard about it. They were featured in Bethesda magazine recently about this firm. He also is an advisor and investor to several other early stage technology companies. So while Zeki is steeped into developing great businesses, he is quite philanthropic. He and his family, he's the founder of the Next Wave Muslim Initiative. It's a local nonprofit that serves Muslim American families. I have the pleasure of working with his wife a little bit around that work. She's fantastic, by the way. Yeah, he sits on several nonprofit boards and lives with his family and 3 children in Silver Spring. And so he is a local homegrown Montgomery County resident that we are so happy to speak with today. So Zeki, here's my air clap. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, so we were catching up, folks, right before you all joined, because I haven't seen Zeki because he's been busy creating 17 companies since the last time I saw him. So Zeki, I'm gonna stop talking so that you can talk to us a little bit about Truebill, about Tenovos. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, 10 of us.
Yeah, and tell us about what's going on in the tech world and things that we can learn from you right now.
Sure. Truebill, so let me start with Webs maybe even. So Webs is a company that my brother and I started in 2001. It started as a free web host and we started adding paid services. That one we started right out of college. And then we grew that. We ended up getting venture capital and going through that whole process and ultimately being acquired. Sold the company in 2011 and had a period where we needed to stay on board and transition things. So we stayed for 3 or 4 more years. And then sort of on to our next adventure. Again, with my brothers, we worked together to found Truebill, which is, just as you said, subscription management. So that company, as a consumer, you go on, you attach all of your accounts, and then we go through all of your transactions and find what you're being billed for. Again, that's something that's sort of emerging out of the economy as that people are signing up for more and more subscriptions. So whereas before you might have had a couple subscriptions, now you've got Netflix, you've got your cable bill, maybe you have like a Birchbox. There's a lot of box products where you pay a monthly subscription and then they send you stuff every month. You've got your Amazon subscription, and if you just think about your own personal life, you'll start realizing, oh, I do pay for a lot of things every month. And then it's, there are two types of people. There are people that read every line on their credit card bill, and there are people who don't, because it's 4 pages long. And like my credit card bill is like 80% of the transactions are my wife. So I have no idea whether, right? Like it's like Giant, something, Trader Joe's, something, right? And then you see this like line item that's like $4.50 that I'm getting billed for, that sort of gets lost in the fray. So that's what we're trying to help consumers get their arms around their personal financial health. Tenovos is a company that I joined recently. I joined about a year ago. Tenovos is a company for marketers in Fortune 500 companies who are trying to tell a story. And part of telling a story is the photos and videos and rich media content that they have throughout the organization. And we're helping organizations organize all that content and get visibility into where it's being used, how it's performing, so that people in other parts of the organization can reuse that content as well. So imagine a company like Procter & Gamble. They've got tens of thousands of products. Each of those products has hundreds or thousands of images associated with it. And maybe somebody in that company did a viral Instagram campaign on a product that's doing really well. Now, I, as someone who's trying to market and sell that same, let's say it's a tube of toothpaste, I'm trying to sell that same tube of toothpaste, but I have no idea that, hey, there's this image that's doing really well on social media that I could use or draw from for my advertisement. Tenovos is it's an interesting place to be. We are we're basically in this larger category of helping companies do digital transformation and really adopt online print. So there are a lot of places where they just have a share drive at the office, and we're actually getting inbound calls from those people saying, "Oh my gosh, all of our images are at the office. The VPN is slow, it doesn't work, we don't have a good way to browse our images remotely." And so we're actually getting an uptick in inquiries about our product, because now they're seeing a need for a distributed workforce to be able to access the library of images that the organization uses. So that's been interesting. What's changed for us is that we usually do a kickoff in person. Right, so when we close a deal, then we go in person and do a 2-day workshop, and so we've had to adapt and learn how to do that remotely. People are also, what we're seeing in the marketplace is that the amount of interest has gone up, but the amount of people actually pulling the trigger and cutting checks has gone down drastically. What I've noticed sort of internally is that days of weeks don't really matter anymore. I think everyone's working 6 or 7 days a week, and hours also don't seem to matter. There's just really been a blur of people's time. And I think people are so worried, and people are so grateful to be working. I think it's a time where people, and I'm certainly grateful that I'm in a job where I can continue on, even as things are shutting down. So I think the team is really pushing, and people both internally and from other companies, you can tell that they just want to do something to get some sense of normalcy. And so that includes, evaluating vendors, which we are for them. Maria, I think you're on mute. You're on mute. Oh. Can someone unmute her?
Okay, there we go. Yes.
There you go.
I wanted to interrupt you and ask you a couple clarifying questions for the group.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're running Truebill and Tenovos at the same time?
No. Truebill, I stepped away from. So Truebill, it started again with my brothers, and when we were the first investor that we got was an incubator in California called Y Combinator. And so when the company moved over there, I took an advisory role. So I'm advising Truebill. Yeah. And then
Okay.
I'm spending most of my time with Tenovos now.
Okay. And then in terms of Tenovos, it sounds really, really interesting. One kind of weeds question for the folks. So, and I know a lot of us are experiencing this from working remotely. How are they getting the information from their office to, are you moving their stuff virtually?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we're virtually, yeah, exactly. So what'll happen is we will either yeah, we'll just download it from their office. So they'll give us VPN access, and we'll run an agent inside their network that pushes all of their content into the cloud, which is our solution. It's a cloud hosted solution. So all that stuff gets copied into the cloud, and then from there, their employee base, their user base will download, will search, and all that stuff through our product.
okay. So I know for all of us, right, who are working remotely and trying to get people to pay attention to the product that we serve or the work that we do, I think this image and digital transformation and telling stories is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that you said that interest has gone up, the checks haven't come in quite yet. And
Yeah.
from many things I've heard from other folks, that if you can, this is the time right now where you want to spend some money in marketing, where you want to spend some investment in your infrastructure, so that when people have more money later on, they'll be like, oh, that Leadership Montgomery was all about it, so I want to invest in them, right? Or all that Tenovos was, or that toothpaste I wanted to buy because I saw it 10,000 times on TikTok or whatever. So can you talk to folks a little bit more about how they could be smart in using that money, kind of almost in the Truebill fashion, right? So
Yeah. So actually, I don't want to say that there are no checks coming. It's just that the conversion rate's gone down. So you have to be really watchful, and you can't take any of your prior assumptions for granted, right? So before, maybe you needed to talk to 4 people to get a conversion. Now you have to talk to 12 people. But it's easier to find those 12 people. It's just more time consuming, right? One of the things that Truebill did was they're running TV ads. We could never afford TV ads, but right now nobody's running TV ads, right? So we're running TV, and maybe you've seen it, if you watch on CNN, you might see it. My brother's literally in his apartment holding the phone up saying, hey, let me tell you about the founding story of Truebill. And that's acceptable right now. So you don't need people are willing to deal with an ad that's not polished, right? So that saved us probably $500,000 right there. And people are, anyone with a physical presence is not advertising right now, right? So think about all of the department stores that aren't advertising right now, all of the right advertisers where right now it doesn't make sense for them to advertise. So media companies, so it's cheap to buy ads right now. But you have to really have the metrics for your business metrics to know that you're getting a return on your investment when you're marketing. So if you're able to right now sell and get customers, it's actually, it's opportunistically, it might be a good time to get your name out there and get some brand recognition out. Just be watchful of your conversion rate and make sure that you're not overspending.
So if I'm a small business owner, do you have some tips on how to track that conversion rate?
Oh gosh. Well, so in the if you're doing online marketing, right, which there's no reason just because you're a small business that doesn't mean you can't do online marketing. But if you're doing online marketing, you know how much you're paying per click, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would guess that cost per click has come down, right? But I would also bet that your conversion rate has also come down, right? So how many of those clicks turn into leads and how many of those leads turn into purchases has come down. So you want to just figure out sort of what is your cost per click, what is your conversion from click to lead. Like, okay, cost per click, that's going to be something like between $1 and $2. So sorry, so $1 per click's not a bad cost, right? And then maybe so you pay $2 per click, so 100 clicks is going to cost you $200. Out of that 100 clicks, maybe you get 5 or 10 leads. It's not a bad ratio. So 5 people or 10 people gave you their email address. And then out of those 5 or 10 email addresses, maybe one of them becomes a customer, right? So then you say, okay, so that $200 turned into one customer. Is that worth it for my business or not?
Right. So let me pull us up. So you started how many companies in the last 10 years?
Oh gosh. 1, 2, 3, 3.
3. That's a lot. So in that vein, can you tell us how do you figure out what you want to innovate or create? Like were you like sitting around like, tell us like what that process looked like.
Yeah, sure. So a small company that I founded that's still going, not doing well, didn't knock it out of the park, but it's trucking along is Thumbio, which is a product that takes screenshots. You give it a URL and we give you back a screenshot, right? Mm-hmm. And this was one that essentially Vistaprint needed this, and we never found a good vendor, right? We never found a good vendor. And so it was 4 or 5 months after I'd left Vistaprint. I was meeting with a former colleague, and I was like, hey, so how's it going there? He's like, oh, this thing, we still haven't found a good vendor for. And, he gave a really bad a bad solution that they're going with. And I was like, that's a horrible way to fix this problem. I was like, I don't understand why this is so hard. So I went home and sort of built a proof of concept, showed it to him and said, hey, would Vistaprint be willing to pay for this? And he's like, oh yeah, we would. So they became my first customer. So I built the original product around my first customer.
Okay.
So that was something I knew that was needed, and I built it. And then I built the solution, then I built the website and the marketing material, and sort of started getting users that way. Truebill was me and my brothers brainstorming. We had all kinds of ideas. We said, hey, what if we did a virtual reality Peloton? What if we did, just pie in the sky, just throwing around ideas. Yeah. And then one of us said, hey, what about like trying to track subscriptions? I bet people have subscriptions they don't know about. So for that one, each of us dumped our bank data into an Excel spreadsheet. I wrote some like formulas in there to try to find subscriptions, and each one of us found something that we didn't know we were paying for. So I was paying for Audible. I didn't know I was paying for Audible. Harun was paying for an alarm system on a house he didn't live in anymore. Still paying for an alarm, like still paying monthly on the alarm on a house that he didn't live in. So each of us found something, and so then that was like, okay, this worked. Like again, it was something like I personally would use this and benefit from this. So it's got to be, when you're starting a company, it's got to be something that and something that is needed. Not, people gotta want that. Like the virtual reality Peloton thing. That was sort of an idea that sort of could work, but I don't ride a bike at home to know. I don't do Peloton. I don't go to I don't go to spin classes to know whether that would work or not. Right. And so that would be a bad company for me to start, because I don't know what makes spin so addictive and what makes those people tick.
Okay, so it's creating something around a problem that people want solved. It's something that you have some kind of knowledge around.
Well, that you want solved.
That you want solved. Oh, that makes sense.
Solved. Yeah. Okay. Like solve a problem for yourself or someone that you know well. Right? Like not like a hypothetical problem, but like for example, let's say I wanted to do prosthesis, right? Or I want to solve a problem for somebody who's lost a leg, right? Well, I don't know anyone. Like I could imagine, but I don't actually live with someone who's lost a limb to know what their actual problems are. And I have not lost a limb myself, right? But if there was someone who either lost a limb themselves or had a spouse or a child that lost a limb, they'd be motivated in a completely different way. For them, like that company would be like their raison d'etre, like that's why they would live. They would devote themselves to solving that problem in a very meaningful way. right? At the end of the day, a company is about organizing people around solving a problem, right? It's a structure that we created to organize people around a mission. And the more pure you can be about that, the more engaged and excited your whole company can be, your team can be.
Oh, I
Right.
love that. So here's a question that going to that, particularly around the engagement. So Sylvia has asked, what are some ideas for messaging to markets that don't know you to cut through the noise? She has in parentheses, we're here for you. We're kind of all in this together.
Yeah.
So that's one of our first questions.
Oh gosh, that's such an abstract question. That's,
The name of the job.
yeah, that's the secret sauce though, right? Like that's so specific to your individual, to your sector, and like I would need to know what you do to figure out what maybe, it's about outside the box thinking though, right? At the end of the day, it's about flipping the script and saying, how can I serve you? Right? Like reaching out, and instead of saying like, hey, we're here for you, say like, hey, I can do this for you. What is something, or you just start going out there and doing, right? Instead of sending messages, you go and do it, start being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Companies that are sort of cutting through the noise are companies that are making stuff free all of a sudden, where they say, we're now like, we're giving away internet free to Montgomery County students, right? Well, that becomes a news item. That's interesting. Like, here's a cable company who's giving away free internet, right? During this time.
Right.
So I think that's, you got to be outside the box, and it goes beyond messaging. I think there's got to be like a sincerity to it. I think people
Mm-hmm.
pick up on sincerity. And so, I'm a big believer in sort of the energy that people put out in the universe impacts what happens. And so think about what energy you're putting out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether, and then that will flow. Like, start with your intention. Like, I want to help these people, or I want to solve this problem. Okay, how do I move the needle on that? And then that will come through in your messaging and in your behavior.
Yeah, I love that. Started with your intention and what, yeah, yeah, I think that rings true. She wrote back, and so Gustavo, I think, has a point. Gustavo, you can, I might be able to unmute you, so you can ask your question, maybe.
All right. No, I didn't have a question. I had a comment. So I am a health law attorney, and I'm kind of entrepreneurial. My only comment is not so much a question, is that it's nice to be around to hear your voice, because it's contagious. And I think being around people that think successfully, act successfully, that have lived in spaces of transition, including now in this difficult space, is really a sign. It's a reminder to me of what success is all about, right? Being in the valley, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You have the high moments and the plateaus, and then you have the valleys that you're in, and so kind of going up and down through it. And then, to me anyway, longitudinally over the course of time, you look back over your shoulder and say, "Wow, what a journey this is." You don't quite see it day to day. So hearing your longevity going back from 2001, is great, and it's a little bit of a reminder that all of us have our own separate journeys this way. It looks different, it's colorized differently, but that's what I wanted to add, C. Marie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Gustavo, you reminded me of the journey, with Webs, my first company. So we actually started in late 2000, which, if you remember what was going on, and that was the worst time to start a .com. Because like the just after the crash of the .com, and I was laid off, and I bought some of our original equipment from the company auction, the company that I was laid off from. And we just sort of plugged away, and it was a really hard time. Our advertisers kept dropping us, so it was hard to get revenue. But what happened was that by 2004, like there was this winter period from 2000 to 2004. By 2004, we looked around, and we had no competitors. We're
Mm.
like, where did they all go? Everybody went under. And so all of a sudden we were, from this early startup, we were the largest game in town by far, because there were other startups starting around 2004, 2005, but all the old players had either been bought out or had gone under. And so I think this is also one of those times when we're going to come out of this and some of our favorite institutions are going to be gone. They're going to be, I'm just dreading the time when I go to downtown Silver Spring to like my favorite spot and it's not there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But I think what we're going to also see is that there's going to be space for new entrants, and then the strong people that survive those are going to become really, really strong, right?
Yeah, so I agree. I've been having conversations with folks right now, particularly with company owners, to think about, because there is this space right now to create and innovate, right? And I keep calling it a time of pause. While I understand that people are having personal crises, moments trying to figure this out, but this is also the time, I think this is a time where you can be really innovative, right? And in terms of companies that we hope survive, what I would love to see is more people having conversations around working together, creating a new company together, figuring out how they can be stronger together, right? Mm-hmm. Going back to that whole thing around need.
Yeah.
So if I can fulfill this need, you can fulfill this need, maybe we could do this work together and actually come out so we can exist. Because you're right, a lot of people aren't going to exist. And so I would love to hear if you have other ideas about how individuals, companies, nonprofit could be thinking about in this space, how to come out a little bit stronger.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought. I don't interact with groups of organizations enough to be able to sort of shed light, but I imagine that if I was a restaurant owner in a strip of restaurants, like maybe you figure out how to pool delivery. Right? Like, how do we pool delivery? Hey guys, like let's all, because you want that whole strip to survive, like where we really are all in this together. You can't have it where you're in a shopping center where half of the shopping center collapses around you. Like you really do need the whole ecosystem to be there for us, right? Because that shopping center gives you the foot traffic that you're going to get to have your, when things open back up. If you're marquee, big restaurant, like let's say you're the smaller restaurant, but you've got delivery figured out. Well, you want to help the person who's at bigger restaurant because they give you more traffic to the restaurant.
Right.
So it's maybe a perspective thing first.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a perspective thing. And so it's interesting if people can take the space to think about it in that way and to look, up and past what's right in front of you to figure out how you can, like in that strip mall piece, can all survive. Like that whole idea around group deliveries, that makes perfect sense to me. Like some of the smaller nonprofits, could you come together, right? And we all do this work together, and then we're sharing one accountant and one lease space and one so-and-so, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you contract in that way. So finance could be centralized, HR can be centralized. What do you do well? What do we do well? Let's try to pool some resources and try to figure this out.
Yeah. So one of the other questions I had for you, knowing that you've got this great tech background and we're all trying to figure out, okay, MS Teams, no Zoom, no Cisco. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Which? Could you tell us what are, in your opinion, some of the best apps that we could be thinking about using or should be using? Or
Sure. So Zoom, for me, Zoom is my favorite video platform. Funny enough, internally at Tenovos, we use Google Hangouts because it's free. So Google Hangouts is a great product. You could do a lot with it. You can't get the gallery view where you can see everybody, which I like about Zoom. Zoom's, anything with more than 4 or 5 people, Zoom does a lot better for. But there are a lot of free tools that are collaboration tools. One of the things that I've noticed is that my kids live in Google Docs and they're so comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with Google Docs is an incredible suite of tools. Google Sheets, you know, all these tools that allow you to edit. Multiple people can edit the same document simultaneously. So we could all jump into a document and start. Someone could put an outline in, and people could jump into each section and start writing. And you could be in comment mode, or you could be editing the document straight away. So those are tools that, if you've not used them, they're fantastic. And then a layer above that, if people are familiar with the Microsoft Suite, so Google Doc is the analogous to Microsoft Word. Google Sheets is your Microsoft Excel. Google Presentation is your PowerPoint. There's a product called Airtable, which is like your Microsoft Access. So it basically lets you build a database, and you can build your workflow around that. Very powerful. So those are some of the tools that I really like.
Yeah, I've heard of Airtable and I've not gotten into it, so I'll have to look at that one. And so now we've been using MS Teams a lot more. We hadn't been using it, but it's been really great, particularly for a quick staff meeting, a quick check-in, a quick phone call. And I think in this part where we're being physically distant, to actually just to kind of put eyes on people like, hey, you know, Gustavo, it's good to see you. I think it's a little better than not being able to see people right now.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, what's your go-to CRM for small businesses?
Oh gosh. Depends how small. Zendesk is good.
Zendesk?
Zendesk, yeah. Again, it depends. Like it depends if you're how many people you have checking those incoming messages, right? Is it more than one person, or is it just one person? If it's more than one person, then their product Zendesk is a great one. Front is another one. So that's Front. I think the URL is frontapp.com. And then there's the poor man's way is you just set up a separate Gmail account for it, and you just like get people on a schedule, and you check Gmail, and you just get some sophistication around how you use folders. So you say like, okay, there's, you know, when I get a message from the inbox, if I'm going to work on it, I move it into my inbox. And then from there, once it's completed, I'll move it in here. And if I want to escalate it, we'll have this escalation folder, and it's your job to check the escalation folder and create some workflows around that.
Okay, that's really helpful. So let's, one of the things we've talked about in these conversations is being present and future focused, right?
So Sonia had a question also.
Oh, yeah.
So can you unmute me?
Yeah,
go
we can
ahead,
hear you.
Sonia.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that you were actually talking about being future focused, and this might be in that vein also, and it relates to technology. I'm wondering, how do you encourage customers who may have legacy applications and are comfortable with using them now, but you want to move them to things that are more future focused, but they may not necessarily be comfortable with it because they're okay with what they're using now, but
Yeah.
you could see that in the future that may not be the best thing for them. So you want to guide them to moving to things that you think will be better for them in the future and help them see why they should be investing in that now for the long haul.
Yeah. What industry are you in?
In the software development, actually.
Software, no, but what types of software? What are you trying to get them to do?
We have a software development company, but it doesn't have a finished product. We have a language tool, and so our customers are developers that would buy the tool and develop their own apps, or we do consulting to help
I
them
see.
with the
Okay.
apps.
Okay.
So the thing is that they may have applications that they're running now, but let's say we come out with a higher level product or something new, and we want to help them see why this would be a good thing for them, but they may be comfortable in an older operating system. For an example, let's say they're using an older operating system, and we're saying you should upgrade, or instead of 32-bit, you should be moving to 64-bit or something like that. And they say, well, right now we're comfortable, but the point is you may not be comfortable with that, or something else is that your customer base may grow if you move to a product that would work on different operating systems, where now you're limited if you're only working on, let's say, a Windows platform, and you could expand beyond that.
Yeah.
But if they expand, it's better for us also. We want to help them build their business, but they are stuck in a legacy thing sometimes.
I mean, don't underestimate the value of legacy systems, right? So we have to remember that if something's been in place for 5 or 10 years, people have built muscle memory around those
But we're
workflows.
talking 30 years, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
30 years. So now you've got like muscle memory and institutional muscle memory, right?
Right.
But like imagine you've got someone who's there and this thing that should take 1 step takes 10 steps, but they've gotten so fast that their fingers are just tapping that. They've got that whole key sequence figured out and they know exactly how to do it, right? And so bringing in a new system is going to slow them down in the short term, right? One of the strategies we've had at Tenovos is that we will actually leave the current system in place if they want, right? So what you do is you say, okay, that's great. If we'll figure out, we'll sync one way or the other. So, okay, that's great. If you put stuff in your old system, it's going to get sucked in and it'll get sent to the new system right away.
So that's what we try and do, is take the kernel of what they've done, whether it's the algorithms or the business rooms that can be kept and moved along. But the problem sometimes is interoperability, that the whole application can't work with other things in the company if it's on a platform that doesn't work with other things within the company. So we always try and salvage what can be used, but sometimes it can't necessarily, or that the whole company is moving to a different base and they're actually in jeopardy of sometimes losing their job or whatever, because the rest of it won't be used. So I agree with you that the more you can use it, absolutely. But sometimes you need to kind of make them see the bigger picture, and that's sometimes difficult if it can't.
It is. Although these problems are also solving themselves, I'll tell you a funny thing is that what we're finding with Tenovos is that we're going into these companies, they have a multi-million-dollar system in place that they bought 10 or 15 years ago. That's their sort of legacy product. And then they've got these homegrown, so these millennials come in and they can't stand the old system. So they've gone rogue and on Smart Sheets or Google Sheets and basically they built their own system using Google Sheets and Dropbox. And so we're coming in, and that's the problem that exists in our market space, is that these companies are realizing that like the newer generation is not going to put up with bad technology. Like they're just like, I can build something better than this myself. And so it's
that's
just
exactly,
like what
yes,
you'll
I
see is
agree
like
with that.
the edges are starting to fray. And so people, we're going in and saying, okay, so you've got these 20 spreadsheets floating around, tracking your assets. Why don't we bring this up into a real system?
Absolutely.
And pull in the legacy system while we're there.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. So I'm going to pivot us for 1 second because we're Leadership Montgomery. We always have to ask this question. So talk to us about your leadership style and give us one of your best lessons you learned as a leader.
Oh, gosh.
I know, they're hard questions, right?
I feel like I don't even remember seeing this in the email, so I don't know that I fully prepped to answer this. Okay, my leadership style. My leadership style is to empower people, is to listen, is to inspire people, and is to grow people. So at the end of that relationship, I want to make sure that that person feels like they learned from me and that they are a better person coming out of it. And so that's sort of has to be part of the mission of the organization, is to benefit the people who are doing the work. So that's my leadership style. One of the things that I learned, I love that servant leadership. That's yes. If you've not read about servant leadership, thank you, Sylvia. A lesson I learned is not delegating. Failing to delegate can be really harmful. So at when I was at Webs, I think we were Vistaprint by then. When around that time, the acquisition, we were growing the team. So there's pager duty, like being on call when the servers went down, your pager, or your cell phone, when you get a message saying something's wrong. And that was sort of disruptive for my life. And I always felt really nervous about asking someone else to do that. And so I always kept that for myself, to be the person that responds to server events or anything like that. So I was sort of the top of the escalation path. So then Vistaprint did like a 360 review, and what came back in the 360 review was that someone wrote in there and said, Zeki keeps all of the interesting stuff, like ops stuff, to himself.
Oh.
And I read that and I was shocked. I was like, the reason I'm keeping that is because I hate that work, and I can't imagine forcing someone else to do that work. And here's someone who's interested in that. And so failing to recognize the diversity of my team was sort of a mistake, and failing to put that out on the table. Say, hey guys, I hate this. Is anyone interested in taking this on for me? I think was something that I learned.
I love that. So, and I think this is the time right now where we could and should be, dare I say should, I'll say could be asking our teams, right? What are things that you really want to do, right? Because many of us had to pivot to figure out, well, we can't, I'll take Leadership Montgomery, right? So we can't do events in person, right? So we'll learn how to use Zoom, and we'll learn how to do so-and-so. Oh, and this person will be the expert in Zoom, and this person will be the expert in creating these backdrops, right? So we had to ask the question, what are other things that we can do? And so I think this learning the diversity of the team and somebody else who wants to do this work is really, really important, and will keep people moving and on the other side of this. So I'm glad that that's one of the lessons that you share. So the other question, I think, which is in the list we sent you, is so what are you using to stay up to date? Like, what websites are you reading? What apps are you following so that you can stay super current and relevant with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so for me, it's about keeping track of what's happening in the online industry. So TechCrunch is a blog I check regularly. That sort of tracks who's getting invested in and what products are being released and sort of what's going on, mostly in the Valley, but they track sort of all over. The other one is Product Hunt. Product Hunt is like it's, oh gosh, I don't know if you guys know Reddit either, but basically things, a product, anyone can post a new product that's been launched, and then the whole community votes it up or down. And so every day you can just go on there and say, like, what are the top 3 things that came out today? It could be a physical product, it could be a website, it could be anything. And then it could be anything from like Apple's new iPhone to, 2 guys in a garage creating something. So those are my top 2. I hunt out videos on YouTube sometimes to get familiar with something. So for example, if there's an Amazon service that I haven't heard of, like just today I heard about Amazon has something called Eventbridge. Then I'm going to go to YouTube and find like a nice meaty 40-minute video on Eventbridge. You're not going to be interested in it, Marie. It's like a enterprise service bus. It's for like it's not for events. It's not for hosting events or anything. I saw you writing it down. It's a very technical. It's like for getting 2 systems to interoperate between each other. But so then I'll go on YouTube and try to find something either from someone at Amazon talking about it when it was rolled out or something like that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. No, I'm not going to be interested in that. Maybe my husband would be. That's not for me. No.
Yeah.
So we're winding down, and I do definitely want to spend a little bit of time about your philanthropic work and talk to us a little bit about Next Wave, right?
Yeah.
We also have Talk to us a little bit about Next Wave, if you could.
Yeah, so so I'm on the board of several nonprofits. Next Wave Muslim Initiative, we started about 10 years ago now, and the idea was that there really aren't any organizations in the DC area that cater to the whole Muslim family. So most of our mosques in the area sort of are an echo of the heritage community that started that mosque. So you'll have like a Persian mosque or Pakistani mosque, and it sort of caters to the expatriate community that lives here, but they're really focusing on the cultural markers of that culture. And so they're not very diverse. From an American standpoint, you're like, oh, look, they're all brown people, they're diverse, but they're not. They're all like from one country or one geographic area. So they're not diverse in the way that we think about diversity. And there's, a lot of them have sort of issues around how they treat gender equality because they're more traditional in that they're bringing their sort of their cultural baggage with them. And what we find is that the children, there's an interesting fact that I read that I think 50% of the Muslims in America came here before 1984, and then 50% came after 1984, right? So that means that there's a bunch of people that were born in the 80s, right? Those people now grew up here, and they've now got their own kids. Right, so that's the category I fall in. So I was born in '78. I've got 3 young children, and that's where we felt the need. Is it's like these old structures don't hold for us. Like I feel a closer connection to a Muslim who's around my age from a different country but grew up in America, went to high school here. Like I have more in common with them than someone who's from the same country as my parents but grew up over there. Mm-hmm. Right, and so my cultural marker is like, let's do a pizza night, right? Whereas like we'll have an event and my dad will show up and he'll be like, "This is so strange, you didn't give tea."
Oh, right.
Like, that's so odd, right? And it's like it didn't even occur to me that would be something missing.
Right.
So that's Next Wave Muslim Initiative. Another organization I'm really excited about is the One America movement. Okay. We're a national organization that's trying to address toxic polarization in America. The way we do this is we bring together communities that normally don't interact with each other to solve a problem in their community. Mm-hmm. So for example, we will, one of the things we did actually was there's a huge problem with heroin, in West Virginia, the drug, narcotics.
Oxycontin?
Yeah, there's that whole addiction problem.
Yeah.
In meth. Sorry, meth. I think it's meth. Yeah. There's this whole epidemic in West Virginia of the drug, prescription drug, and all those things, and they're sort of caught flat-footed. But we have people in DC who have been dealing with addiction for decades. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. But the West Virginia community and the DC community don't typically interact with each other, and they're from parts of the country that are politically opposed to each other. So we brought experts from DC into West Virginia, and we're not saying, hey, like let's unify in this, like let's work on addiction, right? So these DC experts come in, they're like, okay, we're coming in from DC, we need the fire marshal, the police, the mental health people, and your church leaders. We want a meeting with all those people. So they come and they show up, and the first thing that they said is, wow, like this is the first time we've all been in the same room. It's like, how are you guys gonna solve this problem if you've never been in the same room? So just having that insight, right, bringing that insight in from the outside, but then also what we're doing at the same time, so we're healing this divide and saying, look, here are people who are on opposite sides of the political spectrum working together to solve a common problem. Right, at the end of the day, we live in one country. And so that's sort of a bigger project on a smaller scale. What we'll do is we'll bring together 2 or 3 communities. They'll do a volunteer project together for a day. They'll work at a soup kitchen or do a Habitat for Humanity type project. And then we'll have a facilitated conversation after that to bring people together and sort of address toxic polarity.
Yeah, so that's really important. I think that's part of the things we could be focusing on a lot right now. Oh wait, we have a question, so I'm gonna stop talking. Kenya, do you want to unmute yourself and then ask your question? Hold on one second, we'll unmute you. I think that's happening.
Sorry, it's not letting me unmute her.
Well, I can read Kina's
Okay,
question.
I got it.
Oh, there you go.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Zeki.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. And thank you for all this wonderful information you're providing. And hello to everyone. My question to you, well, first of all, when you come here as an immigrant or a refugee, I understand that you really have no network and fewer job options. So you kind of make opportunities for yourself, and I applaud you and your brothers for making that happen. I think that's wonderful. My question to you is, as a Muslim woman, what are your individual practices around inner work and personal development related to racial equity, and what powerful tools or researches do you use to demonstrate how immigration impacts our economy?
Gosh, let me take the first half first. So inner work, there's every religious tradition has practices around meditation and taking time out of your day to focus on what really matters. I think having a long-term perspective and thinking about the afterlife is something that I try to do a lot. That sort of helps you walk away from things in this life that are tempting, but not necessarily the right thing. So I think having that perspective and reflecting on the fact that I will not always live, and that's something that sort of comes from my religious tradition. I also embrace and learn a lot from the sort of pioneers in our culture. So certainly, I think Oprah has a lot of great ideas. I think Simon Sinek, he speaks to business leaders. So if you've not heard of Simon Sinek, he has a great talk on YouTube called "Why Leaders Eat Last." Yeah.
Everyone should read that.
Yeah, it's a book, and there's like a 40-minute video where he basically runs down the whole thing. Or a 20-minute. I think it's a 20-minute, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, "Why Leaders Eat Last" from Simon Sinek is amazing. "The Power of Now" is a series of books that I've read from Eckhart Tolle. So I keep my ear to the ground, and I look for people who I admire, who have grown spiritually, and I ask them, how are you doing this? And let me see which of your practices I can adopt for myself. Understanding, I think, what's coming in from an immigrant and growing up and not fully understanding like what's the deal with this racial tension and stuff. Like I don't have the guilt that my ancestors participated in the slave trade. And I also don't have the burden of having my ancestors be victims of the slave trade. Sort of a neutral party here. I have certainly experienced prejudice because of the way I look, and I've also experienced privilege, having been raised by parents who were educated, and so I can sort of see all sides of it. But just having that language, the way I phrase that question, that sentence, has come through a lot of reading and training to try to understand what's going on in America. And I think it's important for everyone in America to understand what's happening. There's a great book, I think it's called something like "Why the Black Kids Eat Alone at the Cafeteria."
Oh yeah,
Is that what it's called?
Table, yeah.
Yeah. To sort of untangle some of this stuff. And I think diversity work is something that especially organizations that work in the community should regularly have activities around diversity work. Impact Silver Spring does amazing stuff around this.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Maria. Hi, this is Mimi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mimi.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful meeting. And I totally agree with Brother Zeki, what he's saying. I want to just add to the questions about immigrant and diversity. I am an immigrant, and I came here with $200 in our pocket, and now we have business, and we have 75 employees. So how did I start my business, and how did I do that? There is so much similarity among us, the people ourselves, regardless of their religion. And my focus was on that. My religion is my personal practice, and I was aware of what I need to do. But when it came to the business, I was trying to figure out what is similar among us in the business idea, in the business world, beside the religious part, because business is business. 1 + 1 is going to equal 2, no matter where you come from or what culture you come from. So, and my comment on the other part about the difference between your generation. My kids were born here, and I have 15 grandkids, and I totally agree with you. They don't understand why I need to have my tea at my party, or why I need to have my Turkish coffee at my party. They says, "Oh, grandma, Coke, soda," you know. So the total difference between the immigrant who came here and still live like I live, I'm from Egypt, and I still feel like I'm still in Egypt. But then I had to change. I realized that, hey, I'm in America, you know. I started drinking coffee when I immigrated here. I never drink coffee before, except Turkish coffee. Now I go to Starbucks every day. So, being able to adapt and to changes and keep your own identity. The most important thing, what I'm trying to say, keep your identity because of who you are. But people are people. And we need just to respect each other and work with each other. Your personal journey is yours, but we're all human beings, right? So that was a lesson learned from me, how to connect with other and build a good relationship regardless of where they come from or what religions they are. But I would love to connect with you, Zeki, to share my stories about our business. So thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And also, Kina, it's a pleasure to see another Muslim on the call too. This is great. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. And so we have run out of time, so I'm gonna let Zeki make a final comment. But I think one of the things that I heard, whether it was around personal, professional, family, is really organizing yourself around what your personal, professional mission is with some purity, right? And that's how you're gonna keep everyone engaged. And so I think that's the through line for anything that you were talking about. And that'll be that's gonna be my final closeout, but I'd love for you to give your final thoughts, Zeki. And I just wanna thank everyone who joined the conversation today. I think it was great. It's always so important to have these uplifting conversations right now and stay connected and learn from each other. So I hope everyone learned something on the call. I know I have like 17,000 notes. Zeki, I'll let you close us out, and then we will get off the Zoomer.
Yeah. You know, what the last thing you said was just really resonated with me. I'm going to bring in a word, integrity. I think integrity is so important. And it's so, you know, it's critical that our actions align with our internal beliefs and our principles. And just a quick example is that in the last election, people felt that Donald Trump had more integrity than Hillary Clinton. And the idea is that I don't agree with Donald Trump's principles, but I understand them, and I can see that his behavior aligns with that in a very ugly way, perhaps. But I think people could say, like I can trust that, like, he is what he is. Like, on the surface, what he says is what he's going to do. Is like, look, like some of the stuff he does, it's like that's kind of like what we were afraid of. And so I hope I'm not getting too politically controversial. I know I'm putting you in an awkward spot, but I think it's so important that people can understand and wrap their head around, like, this person says who they are and they do what they say and they say what they do. And I can follow that. And then, as a leader, especially, it is so critical that you make a stand for what you're going to do, and then you move forward with that, and then you're true to that. So as a leader of an organization, you're like, this organization is about addressing poverty, for example. If you're a nonprofit, we are about addressing poverty in this community, then that whole organization needs to be centered around that. And you need to, that means you would never do something that would create more poverty somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as soon as you sort of bend those principles, people, your team's going to notice it immediately, right? And so, same thing with, like, when you have these corporate giving programs, right? Like, you got to do it with integrity. What is the goal of the program? And you cannot have something where the organization is causing the very problems that they're saying that they're solving on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And I said I was going to stop talking, but at the beginning of the hour, you talked about people show up how they are right now. And right now it's super evident, right? So wherever you are in the fence, wherever, it's showing up right now. And so I would say to everyone, think about where you are. And if you want to be in a different place, figure out where your mission is, where your integrity lies, and figure out how to shift to that spot. Mm-hmm. And so with that, it's 1:04, and I know that people's got to get to their next thing. I hope we've nourished and fed someone somewhere in this hour. I know I've been nourished and fed, so I thank you all. Zeki, it was such a pleasure. It was so good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. All right, everyone, let's do an air clap or a hand clap.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions too.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, everyone, we'll see you soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.